leaving a bar in Ballard after a friend's party in February 2021. I hadn't drank that night. I'd been sober for 12 years, and I found that one of the benefits is that you get to take your car home at the end of the night. My car was parked a few blocks down the street. A couple hours earlier, the snow had really started to come down. When it started to stick and accumulate on the railings outside the bar, I decided to give my hugs goodbye and try to make it home. It was close to 2, and the bars would be having their last call any minute. Right now, the sidewalks and roads were empty. I could hear live music and muted laughter from the tinted windows I'd pass, each filled with people who'd soon be hitting the roads. I began to jog, hoping I'd have enough time to beat the clogged-up side streets near the locks. I'd find myself passing one of the entrances closest to the botanical garden. The tall metal fence was closed for the night. It stretches most of that block. A couple feet past the entrance, the other side of the fence gets thick with shrubbery, blocking the view from the outside. I continued to walk on that strip of sidewalk parallel to 54th Street, my eyes once again fixed in front of me. That's when I caught something ahead of me that stopped me in my tracks. A pair of thin arms were reaching out from the bars. Both hands were grabbing at the air, pausing, then again lunging randomly into the sidewalk's path. The lampposts that line this sidewalk are bright. I got close enough to see the nails adorning their fingers were long and black. Before I got too close, I started walking at the edge of the sidewalk, out of reach from these 2 outstretched arms. Just before I cross its path, the arms suddenly jolt backwards, out of view, making a rush of noise as they pulled back through the leaves and away from the bars that separated us. The feeling it gives my stomach reminds me of how it felt walking through my grandma's house at night when I was young. A rising, tingling terror that makes you want to run as fast as you can. The shoes I wore that night were more business attire, and I'd come to discover how terrible they'd be for maneuvering in the snow. I nearly slipped 14 times before I got to my car, but I didn't stop running until I got there. Thankfully, my car was all-wheel drive. I barely got out of there before the roads were unmanageable, almost getting stuck more than once as I got closer to Golden Gardens. I willed myself home, though. There was no way I wanted to encounter what I'd just seen again. I just wanted to get home and forget. But I haven't quite figured out how to forget this one. I work and live in Seattle for about 9 years now. Admittedly, city life can be exhausting, but I'm still a fan of the area. It's easy to get away from the city without going far from it. Usually I try to go hiking and camping several times a month in the summer, and sometimes I bring a few friends along. But this particular weekend, I was out on Bainbridge Island alone, which, for those of you who don't know, is a small island west of Seattle. You can hop on a ferry from the busy city and enter nature's paradise in all of 35 minutes. I wasn't worried about being alone. Done that part many times, and I happen to have spent a good amount of time as a starving artist, so hiking out in the middle of nowhere has kind of become my way of finding inspiration. I always do my best work out there. I mostly draw real things, nature scenes with flowers, trees, insects, and animals. I just want to clarify before I get into my story that I'm not going out there to dream up ghosts or goblins. What I saw the last time, it wasn't my imagination running wild, or too much smoking. Truthfully, I'd never put much thought into the paranormal, or if I believed in any of it. And I put even less thought into aliens. But here, lately, that's all I think about. At first, I lumped them into the same category. Like, if I believed in aliens, I had to believe in all the other stuff too. But that's just not true. There's nothing supernatural at all about the concept that there might be other forms of life out there. The universe is literally endless, the number of solar systems in existence is higher than we can reasonably fathom. It seems impossible that we could believe we're alone in such a vast space. Well, I don't really think we are. Not anymore, anyway. It had been a long day, and I'd just settled into my sleeping bag. I wanted to draw a little before going to bed, but a few minutes later, I saw a strange light from the corner of my eye. When I glanced upwards, something that looked like a huge, pale green star was moving across the sky at a high rate of speed. But it had to be something man-made, because the light was blinking. No, pulsating. It passed directly over me and continued until it was almost out of sight. But at the last second, the object stopped and the light became solid. For a moment, I was afraid that something had noticed me and it was going to come back. But then I watched in utter amazement as an identical green light sprang to life. Where there had been only darkness, there were two of them. The lights sat next to each other for a few minutes before they both began blinking and continued on their way together. I just don't know what could have moved through the sky like that. It was so smooth, so fast, and the way that second one popped up out of nowhere. I can't look up at the sky anymore without wondering if there's more of them up there. I've spent a lot of time reading about other people's experiences with UFOs. And at first, it seemed like no one else in Seattle or Washington were talking about these glowing green orbs. But then I dug deeper, and people have been reporting on orbs for a long time. Maybe they aren't always green, but one that caught my attention was someone in Seattle. They reported seeing something on June 24th, the evening I was out there, and it kind of gave me chills. Quote, "Pair of iridescent ovals with tendrils and halos travel rapidly at high altitude on southern course across Seattle." Unquote. So I just started searching Bainbridge Island orbs and Seattle orbs, and I got over 286 hits. Things like, quote, "Two glowing reddish, almost see-through orbs flying over the island last night. They stopped in synchronicity mid-flight. Then they continued with immeasurable speed." End quote. Quote, "Two high-flying bright orbs flew over us tonight. Anyone else see those?" End quote. And then I found something I'd missed in my initial search for green. Quote, "Very pretty, bright, lime green, spherical objects moving very fast, in tandem. Sea Bridge Ferry Terminal, halfway across Puget Sound. Look to my right, facing south, to determine ferry's location en route. I observed two lights in the night sky, 50 degrees above horizon. Two lights in formation, stationary. They mirrored the movements of one another, slowly bobbing back and forth, up and down. Became still for only seconds. Then, one sphere shot off onto the direction of the island, while the other remained still for a few seconds before proceeding to do the same. Both spheres appeared and disappeared within seconds." End quote. Could be related, could be absolutely unrelated. Either way, I haven't been able to stop researching, basically. But I don't love everything I read, meaning I don't know how I feel about the different alien races like the Greys, the tall whites, or any of those. But I don't think the concept of other species is all that far-fetched of an idea, and that's kind of unsettling. Even if what I saw wasn't a UFO, I still think there's a good chance that some people have had genuine encounters. I wouldn't be surprised if the world's governments really were covering up their existence. If these races already have the technology to freely travel through space and study other planets, just think about what their weapons can do. They probably have resources we haven't even dreamed of yet. Really gives you something to think about, doesn't it?